Welcome back. I'm Tyler, you're watching Scarfing Scarves, and welcome to the 30th installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, the last few weeks have been an utter frack storm of epic proportions. Those of you in the know have several clues as to why, and for any of you out of the loop, feel free to check out the Facebook page for more details as to why this channel was at war with the Mushroom Kingdom over an orgasm inspector that just doesn't know when to quit. Update said Mushroom Kingdom has since announced that they're canceling all pending legal action. That's primarily all of your doing out there. And while I realize that there are far more important reasons for the community to rise up over the issues surrounding this person than in defense of some acidic news channel, I would like to thank all of you gathered here and beyond for speaking out when I no longer could. This public message from Anime Matsuri's CEO, John Lay, on the convention website proves that you were heard, and while this fracking letter is a minefield of what the fuck proportions, for frack's sake, you can't keep saying allegations when you're apologizing for having actually done the thing in question. That's not how the definition of this word works. There is a silver lining in seeing that the voices of those who have stood up during this strenuous time have made enough of an impact to force this man to respond in the light of day, outside of the shadows of false DMCA takedowns and legal threats. And while this entire debacle has likely lopped at least 3 years off of my life, it has been beyond encouraging to see this and other communities stand together for the sake of seeing that the victims' stories get the attention that they deserve. That said, do I believe for even a second that the person who threatened to sue me if I didn't remove the videos that reported on John Lay's history of sexual harassment and make a public apology, otherwise they would bring civil charges against me and seek criminal sanctions, is actually sincere when he says, "To those who have been affected by sexual harassment, please speak out, your voice should be heard"? Fucking no! Last I checked, you can't take a fracking cease and desist letter out of context. False DMCA takedowns are no joke, and as far as I'm concerned, you can shove your half-baked gaslighting bullshit attempt at damage control, vainly masquerading as an apology, up your godforsaken ass. That said, with pending lawsuits in the rear view, it's time to continue with what this show was designed for, rewind and start anew. At the top of the segment, Angelic Pretty flipped the script on Symphonia of Birds with their latest release of a flower and fowl-based print with a name that changes depending on the source. I've heard everything from Sky Banquet to Heavenly Dinner. Google Translate can't seem to make up its mind, and in the meantime, it would appear that Angelic Pretty Paris has the best rendition. Celestial Banquet sure as hell sounds a lot more elegant than Sky Dinner, and I will fight anyone who wants to call this gorgeous series something that reminds this reporter of the sad excuse for chicken served to anyone unfortunate enough to board a United Airlines flight. On the upside, the flight does now come with a free beating, so there's a good chance you'll be too concussed to realize their chicken tastes like rubber and sadness before they cave in your skull. That said, the matching head bow looks like it was designed by someone under the influence of substances not recommended for work that requires more active brain cells than a pickled vegetable. Was this designed in the dark? Someone explain this lopsided extra fold. I must know the thought process behind this to complete my research addressing the exact moment a seamstress lays down their needle and curses heaven and earth as one. Is this some kind of wabi-sabi bullshit? Because it looks more like wabi-saki to me. Note that wabi-sabi in traditional Japanese aesthetics is a worldview centered on the acceptance of transience and imperfection. The joke here relates the flawed balance of this bow to that same aesthetic, and the switch out of sabi for sake changes the original meaning to imply that it was more likely that the designer is an alcoholic than it would be for this bow to be any kind of purposeful expression of appreciation for the imperfect by design. This has been an explanation of a joke, thus ruining it in its entirety, and those of you looking for an apology for mentioning alcoholism in a comedic context may refer themselves to the top of this episode. I do believe it had something to do with shoving it up your ass, but what do I know? I'm on my 5th shot, just trying to get through this without losing what passes for composure for a woman who woke up on the wrong side of the existential bed. Moving right along, BTSSB is releasing some kind of pregnant bubble that I believe is called Sakura Celestial Maiden. Classical Puppets is trying to get HBO on their fracking bonnets, and some Taobao brand is striking a wide stance for dominance. I don't really know what's happening here, but that horse mask will be in my nightmares. What the ever-loving frack is it holding above its head? Back away slowly, and the pastel god of equestrian suffering just might let you live. That said, as that about wraps up the week, we turn towards Last Week Lolita News' next special segment. I'm sure nothing of any import has happened while I was away. Surely anything is better than the unfettered hellscape the Lolita community endured for the better part of a month while certain fungi ran amok and 40-something-year-old men did their absolute utmost to cover their lurid history of sexual harassment. So, what happens to be on the docket this week? Oh. Oh no. Okay, it all started in Ruffle Chat. On the first day of 2018, a post appeared in the Facebook community detailing a warning for people visiting Tokyo or London to beware of a man by the name of Kensuke Iwai. The post identified him as part of the band/brand Broken Doll, stated that he had sexually harassed a friend of the author, ignored her refusals, and had a history of harassing foreign girls in particular. He is apparently known for attempting to pressure women into sending illicit pictures, and it is unknown at this time whether or not he took a vacuum to the face, turned it up on high, and got stuck. There are only so many things that can cause a man to look like his under eyes have a hard-on, and outside of the debate as to whether or not they can be used as a flotation device should someone shove this creep back into the ocean, for most there remains a pressing question. Part 1, who the frack is Kensuke Iwai? Part 2, why should you care? And Part 3, why for the love of God am I reporting on a story that's more than a month old? Is masochism related? Why else would I turn this channel back towards a topic that recently resulted in threats of criminal sanctions? To answer the last question first, if it hadn't been for the wave of the anime Matsuri controversy, this story would have been the next special segment. This channel was forced to go on a month-long hiatus for legal reasons, and in that gap of silence, this story was never covered. So, now that threats of lawsuits are off the table, it's time to look back on something that will realistically only lead to nausea in the creeping sense that there are some individuals for which shame is just a theoretical concept. So, who the frack is Kensuke Iwai? A 40-something-year-old Japanese man, sources say that he is married, the father of 2 children, and after consistent reports of creepy behavior, it would appear that he has a history of targeting young foreign women in particular. He is also the general manager of J-girl rock band Broken Doll, guitarist of the same, as well as owner and designer of the identically named shop/brand. Not content with running a band that sounds like a pack of cats in a subway tunnel, Iwai runs a Facebook community by the name of Tokyo Kawaii Meetup, which he uses to promote his brand/band and is specifically geared as an outlet to gather foreigners visiting Japan. You'll notice that everyone in the banner is female. And I'm sure that Kensuke, being the only guy present in the profile picture, has absolutely nothing to do with the possibility that this group is being used as an unofficial import service for the type of person who looks like a crash test dummy whose airbags deploy directly from the face. Which brings us to part 2, why the frack should you care? There is eventually an upper limit to how many eye bag jokes can be justified on the basis of this poor schmuck having a front-end collision for a face, and given that it would be in poor taste to lambast some guy on the basis of being some creepy fuckwit alone, I'd like you to sit back and recall how this all began. If you'll remember, this all started in Ruffle Chat. The opening post was meant to be a warning, and more specifically said that Kensuke Iwai had sexually harassed a friend of theirs continuously even after she said no. Now it is at this point in the story that one perhaps imagines a few rogue messages, some kind of unwanted verbal or physical flirting, or something else from the laundry list of disturbing nonsense that women contend with on a daily basis. What one does not imagine when one hears the word harassment is an event where a 40-something-year-old man follows a young woman into a bathroom, forcibly removes part of her clothing, and commits a sexual act on her body without her consent. That kind of behavior belongs more comfortably under the term sexual assault, and that is indeed the tale of one purported victim of Kensuke Iwai's sexual harassment. In a story posted to her Tumblr, the woman whose name shall be withheld to protect her identity states that she, Kensuke, and another unnamed girl had gone to Deco Bar Z, a nightclub in Japan, on New Year's Eve. She became hot due to a couple of drinks and decided to change into a light hoodie in the restroom. And when she came out of the stall, he grabbed her, pulled down the zipper of her hoodie, forcibly moved her bra, and proceeded to commit a sexual act upon her body despite her protests. She eventually succeeded in breaking his hold on her and ran away. It is at this point that it should be noted that she says she told him to stop multiple times, to physically disengage him from her body, and even after finally escaping by running away from him, she goes on to say that he followed her throughout the rest of the night, grabbing her, quote, wherever he could, forcing her to run laps around the club just to keep him from grabbing her again. Now, with that said, some of you out there might be wondering why she didn't just leave the club. I'm sure this question only arises from lead poisoning, because fully functional human beings have enough cognitive clarity to understand that maybe the best thing for an inebriated woman to do in a foreign country isn't to wander her drunken ass into the night with a native citizen who just sexually assaulted her right on her tail. Maybe she wanted to sober up first. Maybe he was her only way of guiding her home. Maybe she has been pre-programmed to minimize what happens to her as a woman, didn't want to start conflict, and took on a strategy of avoidance until such time as she felt comfortable leaving the premises. For frack's sake, this affair has been called sexual harassment when tongue very clearly met flesh. Minimization does not even begin to cover it. The This is a common reaction of women who have been assaulted, and if your primary concern in a tale of a woman who just endured a sexual attack is focused more on her reaction than the perpetrator of the assault, then I'd love to hear your thoughts on your choice of dress the next time someone mugs you on a city street. Why didn't you shove your wallet up your ass where it was harder for the thief to get to it? Are you aware that you were putting off fuck me up and take my money vibes? Why didn't you just tell the mugger to stop? Let's focus more on the fact that this man purportedly assaulted a woman despite her protest and proceeded to stalk and grab her afterward, shall we? Now, you'd think this alone would be bad enough, but we're not done. Because people in Ruffle Chat decided to contact this man, get his response to the situation, and returned with the following screen caps. So, what does the man accused of sexually assaulting a woman in a bathroom, stalking her throughout the night, and grabbing her whenever he could against her will have to say about his actions? He says gossip makes girls mad. He hates gossip. He's so sad. Let's completely forget about the part of this message in which he clearly admits that he touched her and she didn't like it. That obviously doesn't contradict this man's understanding of the word gossip. Maybe he can team up with Lay and they can play a game of that word doesn't mean what you think it means, you airbag-faced imbecile. Seriously though, did your father stick his dick in bubble wrap? Because that's the only way you get eyes like that. Let's also ignore the fact that he sent this poor woman unsolicited pictures of his dick. I'm willing to bet it's as warped as his sense of social decorum. And upon being pressed on the matter, responded, "I'm so sad, I'll go to die." First, bullshit. Second, if you believe for even a nanosecond that this is anything other than a shameless attempt at exploiting the sympathies of the people reading this in order to distract from the fact that he is admitted to making sexual contact with a woman without her consent, then I don't know what to say to you other than for the love of fuck, this couldn't be any more fracking obvious. For frack's sake, he uses some cutesy little Facebook sticker right before his ploy. Does this look like the message from a 40-something-year-old man on the brink of doing the unthinkable? Because I know when I'm looking to end my suffering with the sweet release of non-existence, the first thing I need to do is decide on what emoji best says 30 seconds from a switchblade and an uncomfortable call to inform the relatives that the frilly prat has finally spat her last sentence. I'm thinking bear with arrow to convey the piercing agony of having to share a planet with these fuckwits, or bear with sobbing because why even live if I can't say that this man's face looks like it was vacuum sealed for storage. So, it comes out that a woman was sexually harassed by Kensuke Awai. He admits making sexual contact with her person over IM, tries to gain sympathy points with an emoji, has sent her pictures of his penis, and you would think it was over and that would be the end of it. You would think that he couldn't get any dumber. You'd be wrong, but it's nice to think that. Because Kensuke has one final thing to say that just might brighten up your day. He wants to rick your pushy. His dick is biggest already. And he wants to make you dropping wet. Because that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching Last Week Lolita News, and be sure to tune in next week when we cover the tough topics like why the fuck did I subject you all to this subject again, what the duck is wrong with this man's face, and would you let him rick your pushy next time on Last Week Lolita News. This has been Tyler, you've been watching Scarfing Scarves, and before you dunk your head into the nearest canister of bleach just to dull the pain, you should know that this show is sponsored in part by Lolita Des, a secondhand Lolita and J-Fashion shop based in Japan with excellent English-speaking staff and an official sponsor of Last Week Lolita News. Lolita Des, when some prattling reporter has just tanked your hope for humanity for the umpteenth time and only hardcore retail therapy will do, fuck the rent, they have frilly dresses. Link to their shop below, and to wrap this up with a big fracking bow, I'd like to send a supermassive thank you to my patrons whose support throughout the last month has been absolutely integral to my not drowning myself in alcohol and poor life choices. I can't say I wouldn't have replaced my blood with Jack Daniels otherwise. And if you'd like the show to continue functioning as a thorn in the side of every fuckwit dumb enough to take this seriously, with enough salt to start a mine, and or feel like supporting the preeminent bastion of an overly verbose prat with a bone to pick with otherwise innocuous subject matter because they weren't hugged enough as a child, then head over to patreon.com/lastweeklolitanews for more content that may or may not drive you to drink. Thanks again guys, and I'll catch you next time on Last Week Lolita News.